Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
My childhood was an amazing one. I was so lucky to have my mom. She was a stay-at-home mom, so she was there with me all the time whenever I needed. And my brother, who's 9 years older than me, we got along as well as can be expected for such an age difference. And then my dad, he worked really long hours, but he made sure to always take the time for family time. So we were a very close family, and my childhood was filled with so much fun. Relatively recently, I had my old home movies transferred into digital, and I've been going through them and watching them, and it's brought back some memories of my childhood. But to see me there so happy, and it was an amazing experience to go through sort of a journey down memory lane that I didn't even know that those memories existed. But a really happy, typical childhood, good family, and a good neighborhood, good neighbors. We knew our neighbors. Just a kid.
Sounds idyllic.
It was. Looking back, it was just a really happy little kid. I actually thought that people, when I was really young, I thought that people sang like they do in Disney movies. I thought that was just how people lived. So I was always singing to the trees or to the rocks or to my shoes, whatever, because I thought that's how like happy people were and how people expressed themselves. And I was really saddened to find out that the world is not a musical where everybody dances and sings.
So you will have been, having been born in 1988, you were sort of 12, 13 around the turn of the century. Your mum and dad made sure the family computer was in the family room. Presumably that was so they could keep an eye on what you were doing.
They kept it in the family room. That's just where it always was. There was no other place for it. That was where the game systems were, the television that the family would watch. That was sort of where we did our leisure activities and our entertainment activities.
How did you end up online then without your parents' knowledge?
The internet was really introduced to me through my older brother, who was always playing games online. And I think it was Diablo was one of them. And I wasn't quite interested in that game, but it looked like a board game where you could play with other people online, and I couldn't get my 12 and 13-year-old friends to come over and play board games with me. So it seemed like this really great way to play board games with people that actually wanted to play them. And that's really what I thought it was. And in 2002, the internet was really just entering the home. And my parents had thought that they'd given my brother and I a really wonderful gift. And they sat down with me and talked about stranger danger. But that's not something that really crosses into discussion about online predators so well. Because people online, yes, they may seem like strangers, but then you learn about them, and everybody is a stranger before you meet them. Also, back in 2001, 2002, there were no news stories, there were no seminars, there were no PSAs, there wasn't anything saying that there was a threat. And evil doesn't knock and say, hey, can I come in and mess up your life, please? If it did, people would essentially not answer the door and not respond to that. But you can't protect yourself from what you don't know. And my parents didn't know. Being that it was in the family room, my mom was always walking by, my dad was walking by, my brother was there. It didn't seem unsupervised because they were always around and could walk in at any moment. But it was often late at night that I would also be online.
Did you deliberately go behind the rest of the family's back then?
There were times, as kids do. Made a mistake, tried to push the boundaries a little bit, push the rules.
And what was going on? What was happening on the internet with you? What were you getting into at that point? Evil, as you say, doesn't knock on the door. How did it present itself?
So again, back in 2002, I had no idea what dangers were online, nor did my family, and nor did any of my friends or their families. So before I'd gotten online, I was actually one of the last of my friends to get on there. It seemed like it was a time when both the parents were entering the workplace. So mom and dad both went to work all day, and then the child would come home from school and mom and dad would still be at work, and to keep the kids safe, they weren't allowed to go outside. So they stayed at home and stayed online, which was seemingly safe. So in order to maintain my friendships, I got a screen name and got online. Now, I was a really shy, quiet child, the kind of child who didn't raise their hand in class, even if they knew the answer, the kind of child who didn't want to order pizza over the phone. I was just really shy, and not that I struggled with self-esteem in an unmanageable way, but I think all teenagers do. My friends and I were online, and we would research different things. We would communicate, talk about all sorts of things under the sun. And what it really was, honestly, it was like a middle school utopia. This seems like it was a time before kids could realize, before they realized that cyberbullying was a possibility, because it seemed like everybody got along online. The really popular kids were talking to the not so popular kids, and most importantly, it felt safe. My mom was there, often in the same room. My brother was there. My dad was there. My dog was there. Nothing and no one had ever hurt me in my home before, so I felt completely safe.
Tell me about your contact with the person who ultimately attacked you.
This person, he was my friend. And that's exactly how he presented himself. He was always there for me, day or night, listening to whatever I had to say, giving me advice, sharing stories, just a friend. And over a period of 8 or 9 months of grooming, it was really effective.
But this is someone who you trusted. This is someone who'd gained your trust, and you shared lots of experiences. There's someone who I presume knew quite a bit about you.
Right. We talked about everything. Movies, music, school, somebody to complain to and get comforted by. The definition of a friend.
What do you remember about Christmas 2001?
I remember Christmas being really wonderful with my family. Again, those home movies. Watching that Christmas, you would never think that something like this could happen to that family or to that little girl. There's no indication. There's no clues. There isn't anything that says that this isn't just a normal family holiday. It was a wonderful, joyous occasion.
So tell me about New Year's Day 2002.
So New Year's Day has always been a day of celebration for us. We would have a big family meal. My mom would make pork and sauerkraut, and we would all sit down, and it was sort of a way to welcome in the new year and as a symbol of good luck, really. And I remember us having just a really nice dinner, and these are the last moments of my childhood that were peaceful, where I was just Alicia. They're etched in my mind as this beautiful dinner, which it was. My mom was there, my dad, my brother, his girlfriend, and my grandmother. And we were all enjoying the meal and just having nice conversation. And at some point between dinner and dessert, I asked my mother if I could be excused from the table so I could go upstairs to lie down because I had a stomach ache. And in her mind, that's exactly what happened. I went upstairs to rest. And it plays over and over again in my mind that if that's just what happened, if I had just gone upstairs to lay down, my life would be so different that I wouldn't have experienced this nightmare. But you can't change the past, unfortunately, and that's not the reality of what happened. What happened was I got up and I slipped past the Christmas tree, which was situated by the front door, and walked outside to meet this person who I thought was my friend, and I left the door open just a little bit because I was planning on coming right back through it. So I stepped outside, and really it shows how effective grooming is, and it's why it's so hard for me to explain, because that wasn't me. Yes, obviously it was me, but that wasn't who I was. It wasn't my character at all. I was a child who was really scared of the dark, and I hated the cold. And I never went outside alone after dark without an adult. It just wasn't something that I did. So again, it really shows how effective grooming is, that this was something completely against my character. I walked outside. It was dark. It was so cold. It was the kind of cold that hurts your face and your fingers. And it was so windy. And what I remember most is the silence, how silencing snow can be. And I think about my parents, and here's what happened on their end. Remember, their daughter had just gone upstairs to rest. My mom asked my brother if he could go upstairs to get me for dessert. He went upstairs and he looked around and came back down and said, "Mom, Alicia's not here." And my mom said, "What do you mean Alicia's not here? Of course she's here. Go upstairs and look for her." And that was where the search began. My dad says he thought that I was playing a game of hide and seek. Although I was too old for it, he was trying to rationalize. And he said that he looked in places that I couldn't possibly fit, in drawers, under beds, in coffee canisters, just looking for a clue, just looking for something, because I simply vanished. And when they stepped outside and saw that the door was open, there weren't any footprints because the wind had swept them away.
Paint a very vivid picture of stepping outside, and it's as if you can still feel the cold and hear the silence.
That moment is painted very vividly in my mind, again, because it's sort of the last moment. If it were a choose-your-own-adventure book, it would be the page that you would continuously go back to try to get the ending that you wanted. It's the page that's bookmarked in my mind that if I could go back to and make a better decision, I would.